In the news tonight, the Russian president says the ceasefire in Syria is on the whole being observed and the result of mediation by Russia and Turkey. The European Council president urges EU members to remain united as the bloc faces an array of existential crises, including Britain's vote to leave. And US residents fight President Donald Trump over property taxes. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. Minister of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs Ayman al-Safadi held talks with his Italian counterpart Angelino Alfano on cementing economic and political ties between Jordan and Italy. They discussed the latest efforts to breathe new life into the Middle East peace process. Safadi praised the Italian support to the kingdom, pointing to yesterday's memo of understanding, under which Italy provided €169 million in aid and soft loans to the kingdom. A ceasefire in Syria is on the whole being observed, Russian President Vladimir Putin said after a meeting with Turkey's Tayyip Erdogan in Moscow. The ceasefire was in large part the result of mediation by Russia and Turkey. Erdogan said Turkey is cooperating fully in military sphere with Russia on Syria. Russia and Turkey have set aside their differences over the political fate of President Bashar al-Assad to try to forge a wider Syria deal. The two countries are the main organizers of the Astana-hosted Syrian peace talks, set to resume between March 14 and 15. Meanwhile, the Syrian government forces are shown in control of the main water pumping station that supplies Aleppo. The Syrian army and its allies captured the water pumping station in a sweeping advance against Daesh that has brought government forces to the bank of the Euphrates. Aleppo's main water supply has been cut off for nearly 2 months, and the city's residents now rely mainly on ground wells or water purchased from private vendors. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the army and allied forces made rapid gains east of Aleppo city as the Syrian and Russian planes pounded the rural areas. International human rights lawyer Amal Clooney and a young Yazidi woman who was enslaved and raped by Daesh terrorists pushed Iraq to allow a United Nations investigation into crimes by the group. Britain is drafting a United Nations Security Council resolution to establish a UN investigation. Clooney, meanwhile, said the Iraqi government needs to send a letter formally requesting the inquiry before the 15-member council can vote. Clooney said that despite public support by Iraq and for a UN investigation, the government has not yet made a request.
So today, I wish to speak directly to Prime Minister Abadi. On behalf of all ISIS's victims, I call on you to send the letter to the Security Council requesting an investigation into ISIS's crimes. Getting the UN involved was initially Iraq's idea, and finally taking action to make this a reality would silence those who doubt your commitment to bring Daesh to justice. And finally, to all of the UN member states, if this road to accountability through the Security Council is blocked, you must take the initiative to secure accountability in other ways available to you under the UN Charter. Don't let this be another Rwanda, where you regret doing too little, too late. Don't let ISIS get away with genocide.
Extensive excavations under Mosul's ancient mosque of Jarna showed Daesh took care to preserve artifacts for loot in sharp contrast to their public desecration of antiquities. A local archaeologist said experts surveying the damage after it was recaptured in January found a network of tunnels dug by the group leading down to a 7th century BC Assyrian palace. The careful way the tunnels were dug shows Daesh wanted to keep the treasures intact, since smuggling of artifacts has been a significant source of income for the terrorist group. The United Nations warned that over 1 million people were on the brink of starvation despite emergency aid delivery to countries classified as being in famine. The UN declared last month that parts of South Sudan are experiencing famine, the first time the world has faced such a catastrophe in 6 years. UN agencies have warned that urgent action is needed to prevent more people from dying of hunger.
The response is indeed scaling up. However, I ought to mention that the funding has so far not followed suit at a pace which is necessary. The overall requirement for South Sudan this year stands at $1.6 billion US dollars. As of now, we have received 9.3% of that amount, and more funding is urgently needed, not least to respond in these areas where famine is already a reality.
EU leaders gathered in Brussels threw their weight behind a multi-speed Europe as the bloc ponders a future without Britain. The heads of state and government of 27 EU member states gathered without Britain at an informal meeting to prepare for a unity summit in Rome next month. Summit chairman and European Council President Donald Tusk urged members to remain united as the Union faces an array of existential crises, including Britain's shock vote to leave, repeated financial trauma, migration flows, and increasingly populism.
Covering both. For me, I think the best motto for our today's debate could be this proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And it was, I think, this was the mood today in the room.
The Japanese Self-Defense Force and U.S. Marine Corps took part in a biannual joint military drill amid heightened tensions in the region. The two sides took part in securing landing zone exercises and casualty evacuation drills at the Japan Ground Self-Defense Force camp. The drills came after North Korea had fired 4 intercontinental ballistic missiles earlier in the week, which landed in Japan's exclusive economic zone, triggering further unease within the already tense region. U.S. President Donald Trump said the United States was committed to the security of Japan and strengthening the two countries' alliance.
Military cooperation is built to build the trust between us so that we can be interoperable and they understand our equipment and we can understand their equipment, so that when we need to operate together, it's much more seamless.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro called on U.S. President Donald Trump to open his ears during criticism of the American leader's policy towards the OPEC nation and a travel ban on Muslim-majority nations. For some 20 years, relations between Caracas and Washington have been tense. Meanwhile, in New York, disgruntled residents are fighting Donald Trump over property taxes. This report has the details.
The town of Ossining, New York, about an hour north of Manhattan, has a problem with a local golf course. The owner, a famously litigious businessman, believed his property tax bill was too high and sued the town. That businessman is now president of the United States, and Ossining town supervisor Dana Levenberg now finds herself in an unsettling position.
It was nerve-wracking to be in a position of negotiation with somebody who might become president. And also somebody, I have to say, who is notorious for seeking retribution. That is really scary. What does that mean now for somebody who's in a even more powerful position?
The federal government can direct funds vital to local governments for everything ranging from emergency services to education. Ossining, just one example of local governments facing off with Trump businesses. At least half a dozen legal disputes remained unresolved as Donald Trump took office in January. Representatives from the Trump Organization declined to comment. The case of Trump National Golf Course versus the town of Ossining involving a particularly Trumpian twist. The town says the taxable value of the course is close to $15 million. Trump's lawyers said no way that the value was only $1.4 million. But in a financial disclosure form filed with election officials, Trump boasted the course was worth more than $50 million. In any case, residents of Ossining have rallied behind the town supervisor in standing up to the commander-in-chief.
Everybody feels like it's really important that there's no special deal that happens here. Everybody should be paying their fair share.
The sides are still negotiating in the hope of reaching a settlement.
Tens of thousands of passengers were stranded in Berlin as a strike by ground staff led to the cancellation of hundreds of flights. Berlin Airport said almost all flights from the German capital had been grounded, with 466 flights cancelled. The reason behind the strike was mainly due to the salary dissatisfaction.
Travellers. Almost all flights diverted or cancelled from both Tegel and Schönefeld airports amid a ground staff strike in the early hours of Friday morning. By 10 a.m, almost 700 connecting flights had already been affected. The protest is planned to last 25 hours, workers demanding a pay increase from 11 to 12 euros an hour. Carriers that serve the airports will be heavily affected, including Air Berlin, Lufthansa, EasyJet and Ryanair. And the timing isn't great. The protests come as trade visitors try to head home from Berlin's ITB trade fair, the world's biggest. Efficient planning helping to mitigate most of the chaos. Many travellers who had been pre-warned knew not to turn up to the airport. Most will be able to fly again over the weekend, by which time these protesters hope to have started negotiations about pay.
In our fitness and well-being section for tonight, we cover the martial art Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which dates back to 1914. Its origin of judo was developed by Japanese judo expert Mitsuyo Maeda, who brought it to Brazil and notably taught it to Carlos Gracie and other Gracie family members. The art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, known as BJJ, mostly emphasizes ground grappling. The combat sports system's growth in Jordan has been on the rise since 2003. More with Dana Boucham.
These kids are not any 7 to 10-year-olds. They are training in BJJ, short for Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which translates into the gentle art. They are not only learning self-defense, but also getting a moral education to be their best selves in life. This applies to anyone of any age. The martial art of flow, like many other martial arts, promotes physical fitness, builds character in young people, and achieves personal improvement.
Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art, self-defense system that allows you to protect yourself without hurting your opponent, let's say. It gives you the leverage and the technique to use it at the right time, help you stop your opponent without hurting him, let's say. I believe myself that Jiu-Jitsu has to be taught to everyone, especially girls and children, because it will help them excel in life, have a goal, protect themselves.
Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is about strategy and technique rather than strength. It is powerful, quick, lively, sophisticated and smart, which is probably why it was described by one of the Gracie family members as a human chess. While practicing Jiu-Jitsu, one tends to understand oneself, mind, body and opponent. It allows one to move with the absolute precise amount of energy. Besides teaching valuable self-defense skills, BJJ builds discipline and confidence and provides a mental and physical workout. Useful for people of all shapes and sizes, BJJ is also a great way to make new friends with like-minded people. And most importantly, it is fun.
To stay healthy and to learn self-defense, and because I want to stay organized.
And I learn self-defense, and I want to be a champion versus higher belts.
It teaches me how to defend myself, and it's one of my hobbies to me. I have a lot of fun. It's one of my favorite sports. It is my favorite.
Once one identifies with the martial art, it transforms the individual into breathing, eating and sleeping the lifestyle. This means proper nutrition, which is part and parcel of the BJJ lifestyle, and maintaining a clean life free of drugs and alcohol.
Jiu-Jitsu is a lifestyle. Me and my brothers and every Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, we believe that we have to be good on the mats and off the mats, like to have an impact in the community, like making good generation, help them to be good people for a brighter future. So Jiu-Jitsu help you do all of this.
If you are a parent dropping off your kid to BJJ, engage and practice with them. Be the role model for your kids and show them that exercise is an important part of your healthy lifestyle too. Lead by example. If you are not a parent, consider BJJ as not just body fitness, but also a mental one. Consider it a way of life, providing a code of ethics that will guide your path in life. Make your path healthy and active. To a more active and healthier you, this is Dana Abusham for the News at 10.
Peter Sagan took his squad's second World Tour victory as he sprinted to the win on the third stage of Tirreno Adriatico. A crash in the final 500 meters of the race split the peloton, leaving many sprinters like Fernando Gaviria and Mark Cavendish out of contention for the win. Sagan had complained of illness earlier this week, but appeared to be back on top form as he builds towards the Spring Classics. Thousands of fans cheered on Toyota driver Juho Hayanen as he charged to the top of the timesheets after two short stages in Mexico City famous Zocalo Square. The Finnish driver completed 2 runs of the 1.57-kilometer special street stage with a combined time of 3 minutes 37.2 seconds to grab first place. Hayanen's leading time was 1.6 seconds better than both M Sport Ford driver Otanak and Citroën pilot Chris Mickey. The event now heads to the town of Lyon for a full day of gravel stages. And finally, cold tonight in the hilly areas, Badia and the eastern plains, with a chance for scattered showers in the central and southern parts of the kingdom. Winds will be northwesterly moderate to brisk. Tomorrow, a drop in temperatures is forecast, so it will be relatively cold with a chance for showers in the northern parts of the country. Winds will be westerly to brisk, turning dusty or gusty in the southern regions. The Gulf Aqaba should expect partly cloudy skies tomorrow, southerly moderate winds to brisk and slightly high seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here are top stories once again. The Russian president says the ceasefire in Syria is on the whole being observed and the result of mediation by Russia and Turkey. The European Council president urges EU members to remain united as the bloc faces an array of existential crises, including Britain's vote to leave. And US residents fight President Donald Trump over property taxes. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Leo Belkar. Thank you for joining us.